Did you enlist?
I got drafted
Where were you living at the time?
at 325 Church Street in New Britain, Connecticut.
Do you remember the date you were drafted?
April of 1943.
Do you recall your first days in service?
First days? Ooh. Well, it was a, oh boy, in Massachusetts.
Fort Devens?
Yeah.
Fort Devens. Yeah, I couldn't even remember that. Yeah, that's where we,
So you went to Fort Devens, Massachusetts first. How long did you stay there?
I really don't remember, but I would say maybe about a month.
And what did you do there?
Well, it was just more getting examined and getting your clothing, and I guess they started regimenting what you're going to go through here for your basic training.
Where did you go for basic training?
Camp Atterbury, Indiana.
How long did you stay there?
We were supposedly going to be an infantry, I don't know, a battalion or something anyway, regiment, maybe, infantry regiment. And I think we spent probably 4 or 5 months there training for that thing.
What was the training like? What did they teach you?
Oh, everything that you see in the movies, basically, you know. You had target practice and bayonet practice and how to throw a hand grenade, and they made them live ones too. Yeah. Marching and you know what they do normally, their thing.
Do you remember any of your instructors?
No.
After basic training, where did you go?
Well, we got what happened is they changed us from the infantry. Evidently, they had more call for artillery, and we got transferred to Kansas, and that's when we started going into the armored artillery. So we went through basic training once more.
For armored artillery?
Yeah.
And what camp was that?
In Phillips.
Camp Phillips?
Camp Phillips, Kansas, yeah.
How long was that training?
Well, let's see. We started out, oh, I'm sorry, that was wrong. We started out in the field artillery, truck-drawn artillery pieces. Instead of that.
You went from the infantry to field artillery?
Yeah, truck-drawn 105 millimeter cannons.
Wow. And is that what you learned at Camp Phillips?
Yeah. And we trained in that, and we got, they ran a contest between the four, let's see, we had A, B, C, D. Between the four, I hope I'm right, 4 batteries. They were separate batteries. Like this was a what you'd call a battery. This was the amount of guys. There was six or seven guys in one. I'm going into the armored. I shouldn't do that. I don't know. We trained probably in the field artillery for another probably 6 months.
All right, what was your job in the field artillery? What did you have to do?
In the field artillery, I was a number 2 gunner.
What did you do? What does a number 2
Well,
gunner
I
do?
was the one that pulled the lanyard that fired the piece. And they had another guy, they had somebody else that looked through well, they had, what they had first, they had observers out in the field. And they would call back if they saw something, and they would be the ones that set up the height of the, what do you call it, of the artillery piece and the range, of course. They were, geez, what did they call them? Observers, field artillery observers. And they're the ones that actually directed the fire of the guns.
Okay, so once they directed the fire, then what did your part do? So then it must have been the number 1 guy?
Well, I'm the one, I also raised they called it back, how high to go. And you go by numbers that they had on there. And that's where you went, and then they had a leveler. You look at a level, there was a level down there to make sure that's where it was. And then you'd call back the guy that traversed the piece. He would holler, boy. Ready. I can't even think of that. And I would holler set, and then we'd get the order through the telephone to fire.
All right, so you were trained first as the field artillery at Camp Phillips, and then what did you do? Where did you go from there?
Well, then we transferred to the armored.
And where was the training for that? Same camp?
No, same place, Kansas, yeah.
How did you feel about getting switched from infantry to artillery?
I had no choice.
All right, so now you're in the armored artillery.
Yeah.
How was that different?
Well, for one thing, there was six men to the armored vehicle. That included the driver that drove the tank. It included a corporal or a sergeant, either one, that had charge of that direction and everything there. And the same thing, they had one guy that set what they call the azimuth, they called it. He's the one that traversed the gun in the directions this way. And then the same thing, I was on there to raise and lower the cannon and fire it after they gave it a word. And I also had on the armored vehicle, if you look at the thing, there was a partial turret on there, which had a 50 caliber machine gun mounted on it. And that was also my job.
So when and where were you trained in the use of the 50 caliber?
Same place.
Same, all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the armored vehicle, is that like a tank?
It's like a tank, but with no turret. It had an open top.
So now your job was going to be on an armored vehicle in the war?
Yeah.
After your training in the armored artillery, where did you go?
We went to Fort Devens.
For how long?
I don't even remember what that was for, to tell you the truth. We must have went over there for some more further training or
Did
whatever.
your whole unit go?
Oh yeah, the whole battalion. We had a battalion.
How many armored vehicles?
There was 6.
Then where did you go?
We went on maneuvers.
Where?
That's a good question. In Kentucky, someplace.
What kinds of things did you do on maneuvers?
Well, they went through most of the time you were camping out. You weren't in the barracks. And I guess you learn more. Actually went through the procedures of the firing of the, what do you call it? And then we went to a range to actually fire the weapons.
So what would you fire, the 50-millimeter cannon?
I'm sorry?
At the range, you fired the 50-millimeter cannon?
No, that 50 millimeters is a machine gun.
Oh.
No, the cannon is 105 millimeter.
So at the range, you fired both of them?
Both of them.
So were you an expert at that?
Well, evidently they kept me there, so I guess I must have known how to do something.
After maneuvers, where did you go?
After maneuvers, I think we got to leave.
So did you go home to New Britain, Connecticut?
Yeah.
Is that when you got married?
Nope.
So you went home on leave for a little while?
And then we were sent back to, I can't remember. It had to be Kansas. Yeah, it had to be Kansas.
Camp Phillips?
And then we had some more evidently some training there. And I got another leave.
Did you go to Connecticut again?
Yeah. I forgot how many days it was. It wasn't very long. And then went back there. And my wife called me, or I called her. Anyway, we decided then and there that she's going to come out there. We're going to get married, and that's where we got married, in Kansas.
Did you get married right on the base?
Right on, no, off the base. In, oh boy, I don't remember the town.
That's all right, as long as you remember the day, Frank.
Yeah. I don't remember the town. My wife probably knows it.
She probably does.
Yeah.
I'll ask her later.
Yeah.
Is she there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She remembers.
What do you want to know?
What town did you get married in?
Oh, oh, Jesus, I had it in my tongue. I was going to tell you. Topeka, Kansas.
Topeka.
That's
You got
Was
married
it?
in
No,
Topeka.
it wasn't Topeka.
Yes, it was.
Was it?
Yeah, Campbell, Kentucky, remember? Then we went there. We moved around quite a bit.
Yeah.
All right, so after you got married, did your wife stay with you out there?
Yeah.
And then for how long before you were called overseas?
Well, it was quite a while because we got transferred to, what was it, Kentucky? Whoa.
Yes, she said.
Yeah.
So you got transferred to Kentucky? What did you
Yeah,
do?
the whole outfit went to Kentucky. And that's where evidently was going to be the jump-off point for overseas. We were supposedly supposed to go a lot early. We were supposed to be in the invasion. And they had what they called the forward party over there already from our outfit. And we got ready to board ship 3 times. And got sent back again. Evidently something happened out there that we know nothing about, you know. So they changed their mind. 3 times we got called to board the ship. All our baggage was with us and everything
So
else.
you had to say goodbye to your wife 3 times?
Oh no, she wasn't there.
Oh.
She had,
She probably went back home.
yeah, but I'm trying to, yeah, it had to be there that she finally went back home.
From Kentucky.
Okay.
She remembers better than I do.
So when did you finally leave?
You know, I don't recall the date at all.
Grace is saying May. What year would that have been?
May?
1943.
You mean for overseas?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good because
I was in Carlisle, Kentucky.
yeah, it was in the spring. Yeah, that's right.
Remember we went to the lake, got burned?
Spring of '44.
44?
Yeah.
Francis was born in 44.
Huh?
Francis was born in 44.
In December.
Yeah, in December. That's right. We were married only a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you left for overseas May of 1944?
Yeah.
Did you know you were going? Did you know where you were going when you boarded?
Well,
the ship?
we went from there to England,
Uh-huh.
and we spent maybe a month in England,
What did you do while you were in England?
just more or less nothing. And finally got the, what do you call it, that they were going to cross the channel. There were probably 100 ships in a convoy that we went over on.
Wow.
It tells you that, what do you call it, that's there.
In that book?
Yeah.
So when you were in the convoy crossing the channel, did you know where you were going in Europe, what your mission was going to be?
No, we didn't know. As far, I really even don't remember where we landed. I don't know if it was Omaha Beach. That seems to ring a bell, but you know, my mind is not clear at all where we.
So after you landed, where did you go?
Well, we went inland a few miles, and the first thing that happened over there is Battery A, which I was on. We got a fire mission. That means we had to get the thing ready to fire. Somebody was, you know, in need. And I think we were the first battery to fire around overseas. Out of the A, B, C, D, out of 4 batteries. I'm positive. Sometimes I think there was 6, but
It's been a long time,
like I
Frank.
said, I know. I haven't even gone through the book lately either. You know, sometimes I used to go through it.
Where was it that you had the first fire mission to fire?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it was right off of Omaha Beach.
Oh, it was right there where you landed, though?
Oh, a
Just
couple of miles inland. That's all. Yeah. Like I said, everything is written in that book. You know, I have to go through it, back through it, in order to remember myself where we were.
And we'll include a copy of that book with the record.
Yeah.
So people can see that.
Yeah, it's all there.
So how was your first time in battle then?
Well, actually, we weren't getting any return fire because this was probably being fired. I think the cannon had a range of 8 miles. Oh, yeah. So
you were doing all the firing, they weren't firing back. It's always better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we've got return fire a lot of times, you know, because they spotted us also. And we had to make some changes and just move one way or the other and get out of the way, you know. And most of the time when we were in a firing position, we were in what they call the defilade position, which is down behind a rise. So you couldn't be seen from a distance over there, you know.
Uh-huh. So after your first mission, where did you go?
Oh, boy. The only thing that I can remember, I think, running into a bunch of, what do you call it, people come running out of their houses over there, bringing bottles of champagne. Oh, yeah. They had it buried in the ground, so the Germans couldn't get it.
But they were going to bring it out because they saw Americans. Now, you were with an all-American unit?
Yeah.
So they were happy to see you. So did you do some celebrating?
Not much. We didn't have too much time. We did manage to get a couple of bottles of champagne.
And then where did your unit go on to?
Like I said, I would have to go through the book.
So do you remember any of the other places that you served?
Oh, Houffalize, the name of a town.
In France?
In France.
So you went through France?
We did. That's where we landed.
Now,
in France.
because you were artillery, because you were armored artillery, did you get to ride instead of walk?
Oh, yeah. Well,
See, that was better than the infantry.
Oh, that's for sure. This was a full tracked vehicle, just like a tank.
So you could ride on that everywhere?
That's where we lived, in the tank. Unless that we went and maybe stopped someplace for a couple of days before another mission or something, you know. But that was rare. We actually lived right off the tank. All our supplies were there, our duffel bags and everything, the clothes that you wear and change and whatever.
Well, how long would you say you were in the field living off the tank? Like months?
We had a rarity where they had a portable unit that used to come with a shower. So you were able to take a shower, if you were lucky, once a month.
Oh, you must have smelled good.
Otherwise, the only way that you could clean up is they had supplies coming in, you know, like 5-gallon cans of water. That's what they carried them in. And they would bring them in, and what you did in the morning, you get up, you wash a little bit out of the helmet. That's what we use for a basin. Yeah. And if you had a chance, you'd shave. And after you got through with that, you'd take the scum off the top and maybe wash your socks in the same water. Yeah.
How did you stay in touch with your family when you were overseas?
Every once in a while you had a chance. They used to have mail pickup where they would pick it up, you know.
Yeah.
Each company had their own thing, and they would evidently deposit it in a central place someplace. You know, they had that, yeah. And you would receive it the same way. They would have mail call every day.
What was the food like?
Food wasn't too bad, being out in the field. They had a kitchen truck riding along with us all the time. Every battery had an assigned kitchen truck. So they had 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, here I go again. 6 of them. Each battery.
So did you get 3 meals a day cooked on the kitchen truck?
Yeah, they had breakfast.
So you really had hot food in the field.
Yeah, when you could get it. There was times when you had to open up some K rations, or what they call their C rations, and it was all canned stuff.
What's in a K ration?
K rations consisted of crackers, cheese, and probably a package of lemonade, powdered lemonade, so you could, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to try to, like especially sometimes if you wanted to heat it up, used to get these food cans, a gallon food can, and fill them with sand, and get some gasoline, pour the gasoline in there and light it, and you had a stove.
That was pretty ingenious. Did you have enough supplies of things you needed?
A couple of times we ran short.
What kinds of things would you run out of?
Well, one time, I guess we ran out of ammunition.
Well, that's a bad thing to run out of.
But well, they were trying to supply it. Evidently, they got held up someplace. Not very often. Another time, we didn't have any food come in for quite a while. But one morning, 6 of us in the tank, we shared one can of beans.
For all 6 of you?
Yeah, spoonful apiece, you know. But what they did is they airdropped this food. Planes came over finally, and they had an airdrop, and there was no other way that they could get into us. I really offhand don't know what happened. That you know, they had to airdrop the stuff. I don't recollect it anyway.
Did you feel any stress or pressure out in the field?
I'm sorry?
Did you feel any stress or pressure being out in the field?
Oh, every day.
How did you deal with that?
Well, everybody else did it. Well, you know, the other guys were there, so you did what you had to do. That's it.
Was there anything special you did for good luck?
I'd pray a lot.
Did you have a chaplain go with your unit?
No, we did have a chaplain that came, I don't know, not too often, because we were on the move a lot, you know. And I guess they had one chaplain attached to the whole battalion. And he would conduct services and give communion right out in the field. And a couple of times we got shelled, and he was amazing. He stayed right there and kept doing it. Everybody was, of course, ducking. You know, when something exploded, your first reaction is to duck somewhere. But he stayed right there and just kept doing what he had to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did you do for entertainment when you weren't in battle?
There was no such thing.
Did you get to see any USO shows?
No.
Not where you were, out in the
No.
field. You didn't get to see anything.
No. They did have one once, and boy, you know, I don't recall it at all.
You could go.
I didn't get to see it for some reason. I don't know.
Did you have leave at all when you were overseas?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. We had let's see. We had some leave there somewhere. Oh, we did. When we got to finally when we got to Paris, we did get a chance of a few days to go around on tour, and I got to see the Eiffel Tower and a few other places. And I think we could. I'm trying to think of, we must have ate in some of the restaurants there, but it wasn't for too many, Paris was already liberated when we got there. Of course, we were out, we don't know what we were doing out, you know, back further before they got liberated, but and that was the same thing over there. People were running from all directions with bottles of champagne and cognac and you name it. Yeah.
Can you recall any of the battles that you were in or that your unit went to? Now, we know you were in France and Germany and Belgium.
Yeah.
Can you recall any of the battles that your battery was in?
Yeah, I guess a couple of them. One was Metz, M-E-T-Z.
Where was that?
In France. They had to be France, yeah. Where they had, oh boy. Cement bunkers or whatever they were, dug into the ground. And they had machine guns and cannons also mounted in there. And that was one of them. We got stalled there for quite a while in Metz. And the only way that they got them out is they got some oil, and they had some guys go over there, take a, you know, actually go over there, and they poured the oil down the air vents, and they set them on fire. That's the only way that they got them out of there.
Wow. So this was the Germans that were in the bunkers?
Yeah.
So what would your battery do during that?
Well, we didn't have any. It didn't do any good. We probably had a few fire missions, but you couldn't destroy the bunkers.
You couldn't with those cannons that you have? What would your cannons typically be used for destroying in battle?
What was my buy?
When you fired those cannons
Yeah.
from the armored artillery, what would your target usually be? Because it wouldn't work on those bunkers? Did you
No,
fire
because
it at targets or like at just
oh yeah,
the...
oh yeah. Well, like I said, see, we never saw what we hit. Just the observers are the ones that saw it, because they're the ones that called in the fire missions.
So what would they usually have you firing at?
Anything. It could have been, either a bunch of, what do you call it, Germans or the enemy out there, you know, in some location that they spotted, and they would direct fire on them. They were probably in a position like we were, you know what I mean? Yep. And sometimes, I don't know, they had an idea evidently where we were at, and we'd get some return fire coming in. And the guns that they had were called 88s. And they had, the shells, when they fired them, had a eerie whistling noise. You could hear them coming in.
That must have been pretty scary.
Yeah, that made you feel real good, yeah. Well, like I said, we had a little protection in the tanks. You know, there wasn't much. I think all we had on the sides actually was 1/4-inch steel. It wasn't made like a regular tank. A tank had a lot of armor on it, and still, some of the ones that came out, especially in that Battle of the Bulge, when they came out with them new tanks, it was like shooting ducks in a gallery, because they couldn't compete with them tanks at all. I forgot what they said that they had there for armor in the front and the sides. I wish I could remember, but I don't.
What other battles can you remember that your unit was in?
Ooh. Well, we were at what do you call it? Also, what do they call them? Dragon teeth or something. They had these concrete things that came up to a point. Were supposed to stop you from being able to cross them.
Now the Germans put those in the
Yes,
ground?
yeah.
Okay. So how would you get past them?
Well, they got a bulldozer, start bulldozing dirt as much as they could, and they eventually went over them with the tanks. Yeah.
How often would you say that your unit moved? Like, were you in a different place every day, or did you stay in one place for like a week? Or?
Sometimes you were in for maybe a week more. I think Metz was one of them. We were in there for maybe a couple of weeks, because there wasn't much advancement being made, you know, and you'd stay there for quite a while. I don't remember too many other.
As the Army was moving forward, there would be other times where you'd move every single day and just go forward?
Yeah, well, that's it.
Were there any casualties in your unit? Yeah, I forgot how many we had. I don't know if I got that little book here or not. Oh, here we are. This was the first thing that was sent to us before they sent the bigger book. Yeah. You were in the 25th Armored Artillery?
Yeah, 274.
Oh, it's 274th Armored Artillery?
Armored Field Artillery Association. They had that for quite a while. They had reunions, but I never made it to one. Oh. They were all out west.
So that book tells how many casualties were in your unit?
This one. I don't know if it's in this one or the other one. I thought it was in this one here.
Well, we can look it up afterwards. All right, so you've located the casualty list, and there were how many casualties in your unit? 24?
Just in our one unit or the whole battalion?
Well, what's that for?
Well, this is the whole
The
battalion.
whole battalion, there were
Yeah.
24 casualties?
Yeah.
And that would usually be from what? Return?
1, 2, 3. I think there's about 3 or 4 here that were observers. They were out trying to find the enemy. And they would get a position from a hill or someplace, and they would call back, you know, like I said before, the fire missions. And right here, Potter, Parker, and Rao. 3 lieutenants here were killed because they spotted them and they evidently fired them, you know. Some of these other ones, we had one of them that was our Harold Best. He was the one that traversed the piece. He sighted the gun in. He was sighting the gun in one day, and we got some enemy fire came in, and a shell burst, and as he was looking through the thing, some shrapnel must have come on right through the head.
Wow.
I don't know how I didn't get hit, but I was down. I guess I was down lower here. The sighting, what he had to do was up. His head was above the side plates. But I was just lucky, that's all.
What would a typical day be like for you? Now, first of all, you said you slept with your armored vehicle. Where did you sleep? Like on the ground?
Well, I had a seat in that turret there that had the 50 caliber machine gun on it. I used to spend most of the time right in there.
And that's where you'd sleep at night too?
Yeah. Sometime if they were out, oh boy, it's pouring.
Yeah.
We got a hold of a pyramid tent. You might say we took it as a loan.
Oh, now you borrowed it.
Yeah, we borrowed it. And we used to set that up. If we stayed, you know, quite a few days, we'd find out how long you're going to be there. And all 6 or 7 of us used to sleep in there.
But
Yeah.
otherwise you'd sleep right in your armored vehicle. Okay,
Right
so
in-
then you'd get up in the morning, like what time?
Anytime you woke up.
And then,
Most of they would wake you up anyway at a certain time, you know.
and then you'd have breakfast from the kitchen truck.
If the kitchen truck was there, otherwise you ate rations that you carried on a tank also. Yeah.
And then what would you do typically? You'd either move forward or you'd
Well,
stay-
whatever. Like I said, during the day, the kitchen, the truck, most of the time was there, so they made meals for you. You know. And surprisingly, they did a tremendous job as far as I was concerned, you know.
Do you recall any particularly funny or unusual events?
Oh yeah, we had a couple. Yeah, we were in the small German town. I don't recall that. But anyway, we got a chance to go around, and I had a guy I was very friendly with. he was in our unit, but he wasn't in my tank, you know. And we were talking one day, and geez, we got to go out and get some eggs. You know, we didn't get too many eggs. So I said, sure. You know, so I figured this guy was big. So we went out, so I still was able to speak a little German. Yeah. So I used to go around and knock on the door, and when they opened the door, of course, the people got scared because they didn't know what we were doing there. And so I would ask them, haben Sie Eier, which is eggs, and they would nod, you know, and they would run, and they'd bring all the eggs that they had, and I said, no, we just take so many, you know, we left them, yeah, and then we'd go to the next house and do the same thing, and we'd bring them back.
Houses?
Huh?
These were houses of German people?
Yeah. They'd knock right on the door. We were right in the town, building it in there. The only other one that I remember.
You weren't afraid they'd shoot you?
No, they wouldn't dare. No. And then we went around, and one time they said, ask them if they have any guns. And one place, a guy come out, and you know what he had?
What?
You know what a Blunder Plus is?
Yes, this big long gun with the big thing at the end.
He bought that out.
Did you take it?
I took it. I was going to send it home. And I had to get permission from, I think, the lieutenant, to send, you know, this thing out. So he, well, I don't know. He said, no. So well, he says, package it up. So I packaged it, you know. As a matter of fact, I went in and I had a box made for it. We knew there was a guy, woodworker in there. So I went in there and told him what I wanted. He made a box for me. And I wrapped it all and all kind of stuff, you know. And after I got all through wrapping it, they came back and said to me, you can't send it. Yeah.
So what did you do with it?
Well, the lieutenant said to me, they're going to have to take the gun, you know. So I wasn't too happy to hear that because I thought that they were trying to get it, and which I think they were. So I said to him, well, can I keep it on the truck? No, can't keep it. I said I didn't want to send it home, you know. So I don't know, I think I had it for a while, and then all of a sudden one day we were stopped somewhere else again, and the lieutenant came by again. And he said, can I talk to you? I said, yeah, sure. Yeah, I had no choice anyway, you know. So he said, you know, I'm going to have to take that piece from, you know. So I took the gun out from inside the tank, went down, and I opened the box, and I happened to be standing right next to a tree. I took that thing and I grabbed it by the barrel, and I smashed it up against the tree. I broke it. I left it right there.
Did he take it broken, or did he leave it?
He didn't take it, period.
Very interesting.
I never heard anything about it, so it must have been, you know.
Yeah, I think the old lieutenant wanted to send it home.
Yeah. Oh, that thing must have been worth all kind of money, you know.
What other?
Some people did send what do you call it? Revolvers and automatic things. I got a hold of one myself one time. We had to go back to ordnance and repair the barrel. They had to replace the barrel of the gun because we had burned out all the lands and grooves that were in there to have a spiral, you know. And we spent probably I don't know, 3-4 days there. We had to leave our outfit and actually go. They told them where to go, you know. And I ran into a guy from Waterbury that was in the ordnance outfit. Yeah, every day somebody hollered out, "Is anybody here from Connecticut?" And I said, "Yeah." So we went over and we started talking. So after we got done talking, I said, "You know, we ought to take a walk." It was nice, a nice area, you know, nice woods out there. So him and I, we took a walk. And but he was from, they repaired, I guess, just about everything, you know, that had to do with the guns and things. And we walked out into the woods, and all of a sudden, I said, "You know, there's deer out here." So I figured, gee, if we spot a deer, we're going to shoot it and bring it back, and they could cook it back at the camp there, you know? Well, I spotted one, and evidently what I did, I turned too fast, and I spooked the deer. And when I fired, I missed him, which was probably just as well. And then, all of a sudden, I thought I heard something. And then I looked around and I saw smoke coming out of the woods. So I says to him, you know, just lay low. So we actually crawled up there, and I spotted a German with a big pot cooking on a fire. He was the only one that was there.
He was all by himself?
By himself. But, and all of a sudden, I got up, you know, and he spotted me, and he was going to reach. He had the gun up against the tree, but he didn't get to it. He ran. And then I saw another one come out from someplace, and he ran with him. They must have knew each other. And I kept hollering, come out, we won't shoot, you know? But they didn't pay any attention to it. So I crawled up to where he was cooking that pot. And I don't know what was in it, you know, and I kept hollering and nobody answered. So I started firing in the direction where they were to try to scare them out. And all of a sudden I see two other guys coming up the road. There was a little road there. They were coming from the ordnance outfit also, walking with no guns. Evidently they didn't think anybody was there. So I holler out to them, you know, that there were Germans in the thing over there. So they scooted out of there. And I kept hollering and firing, and finally one got up. You know,
he surrendered?
Huh?
Did he
yeah.
surrender?
Oh, yeah. So, he said, he hollered to his friend, you know, something like, "Come on out, what's the use?" You know? So finally the other guy came out.
So you captured two Germans?
So we captured them two guys.
You and the guy from Waterbury?
Yeah. And as we were going back to the where they were billeted over there, I asked the guy in German how old he was. He was 54 years old.
Oh my heavens!
I couldn't believe it that they had him. Yeah. And they more or less one of them started whistling. Evidently, they were happy that it was over, you know. So then before we took off, I heard another noise. I looked around, here comes a horse. Out of thick brush, you know, like pine trees and stuff, all thick brush. So I said, what the heck is this, you know? So we took a walk in there. They had a camp set up. had 1, 2, about 3 tents, and they were in the thick woods. Now, they either got cut off from the unit or they took off from the unit. So I looked at one of the tents and I see that the guy was an officer. His jacket was there, you know? Oh yeah. And he had a iron cross and a medal, I guess an infantry medal on the jacket. But I took the jacket. I took the whole jacket.
You still have it?
Yeah. No. And I also looked at the bag that he had over there, and I picked up a pistol, an automatic pistol. But it wasn't a German one. It was, I forgot, from one of the other countries there.
Italian?
Was fully loaded with a clip in it. And I pulled the clip out right away and checked it, you know, and then clicked the trigger to make sure there was nothing in the chamber. And I had some trouble getting the what do you call it, back in, the clip that I took out. So the German guy said to me that he was going to show me how to do it. I said, what? I couldn't believe it. He said, oh, no, he wouldn't do nothing. But anyway, I finally got the clip back in. But I sold it. I didn't try to bring that back. I think I got $100 for it over there. That was a lot of money then. Yeah. But that was an odd experience, you know, to come across something like that. But I'm sure that they, like I said, they were either separated from their outfit or they took off.
So you captured 2 of them. The rest of them must have had
Oh yeah, they did. Well, when we got back there, what do you call it, to their headquarters, I went in and I reported to the captain that was in charge of the place, and I told him that there was still 6 or 7 of them out there. That's what the guys told me. I said because there was 5 horses, 3 horse carts, little carts that they had stuff on, that they carried, you know, transported with them. And I heard that they had some of them out there from, you know, so, but I don't recall now where they were from. But they were German, there's no question about it. So I told them, I said, you have your sergeant, one of your sergeants over here, get half a dozen men and come out there, maybe we can bring them in. I said, because they took off and they didn't take nothing with them. So they didn't have any arms with them at all, evidently, because they had rifles laying out there, and I guess some of the other guys picked them up and took them, you know. But we didn't find them. We just go out there scarred. We never located them.
What did you do with the 2 that you had captured?
Oh, I turned them into the, what do you call it, the ordnance outfit. Oh. They took care of it from there, you know.
And then you returned with your repaired gun to your
Well,
unit?
when our repairs were done, we returned to, I forgot one detail. Well, was it there? I don't remember. There was another time. No, we were. I think this was almost after the war was coming. Not after the war. The war was coming to a close. We were billeted someplace, and instead of sleeping in the, what do you call it, we decided we're going to go to houses and find out if they got any rooms that we could sleep in, you know? Yeah. So we did. We found one place that had an upstairs, and they had 3 rooms that we could use to sleep in. It was in Bouillon, Belgium. I don't know how I remembered that.
That was good. So you slept in the house for the night?
I think we spent, about oh, wait a minute. No, I'm off here. Yeah. We spent about I think it was 3 nights over there. And then I went, I don't know, I met some young kid that came from one of the houses over there, you know? And he said something about that they got room in their house for one, if somebody wants to go over there. So I went over there and I took a look, and boy, I liked what I saw. They had a bed there, you know, and everything else. And his mother was there. So I said, well, I'm going to stay in here. So I'm trying to understand the kid because he don't speak English and I don't speak French, you know, or Belgian, whatever they were here. But I had a record that my wife had sent me, a small record she sent me here. And what she did is she sang the song You'll Never Know. You remember that song?
No.
I'll have to get her.
To sing it. She sang that and made a record for you?
Yeah. And of course I didn't have any place to play it. So I'm trying to describe to this kid here that I had a record that my wife, you know, sent. And I guess the wife they call femme over there. You know? So I'm explaining it to him, and all of a sudden a light bulb must have went on. He says, oh, so he disappeared. Come back about an hour later, he had a record player.
Holy cow.
Yeah. A hand crank one, you know.
Yeah.
So I finally got to play the record.
So that was the first time you heard it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Gee. Oh. Is she here?
Always. She said it was always.
Oh, that was always? You'll never know how much I love you.
Yeah. It was there.
Does she remember it?
Yeah.
I don't remember it.
Do you still have the record?
Huh? No. I don't know what happened to it.
That one day.
She says you killed it that one day. How many times did you play?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Some of my relatives too talking to him. 'Cause
Wow.
that's where I made the record and we didn't have anything.
But I got treated real well with the people. And at night, when I went to bed, the mother came in, knocked on the door, she'd come up, you know, and she came in and she had a brick warmed up, wrapped in something to put in the bed because it was still kind of cold then. And she brought that in. And in the morning I got up, I don't know where she got it, but I had ham and eggs for breakfast. Yeah.
Boy, what a switch from sleeping in your armored vehicle.
Yeah, I know. But that was an odd, you know, talk about odd things happening out there. And then the other odd thing that I remember was one of our guys, when we were building it in that town that I was talking about, I hadn't forgotten about that. He must have went out and he must have got some alcohol someplace. And he was upstairs, I guess in a barn loft. And there was some Polish Oh, slave laborers. That's the only thing I could think of that they were in that town. Of course, the Germans were gone out of there already. But that's what they were left there. And I guess
Now, this was in a German town or in Belgium?
It had to be in Belgium because it was quite late in the war.
Okay.
But anyway, he was our tank driver, this guy. And he got involved, I guess, up in there with a couple of the guys, and they had booze and stuff, you know. So he evidently was ready to come back. And instead of going down the stairs from the loft, he pushed the door open from the top. And you know what they had there? That was, I guess, where they threw all the stuff out. You right down on a cobble. What do you call it? He hit down the bottom. Well, you should have seen him. He was a mess. He had his face bruised and his side. I don't even know how he was able to drive the tank. I'm surprised he didn't break his leg. We went down when we finally left. But I guess he got some medical treatment from our, medics. But, yeah.
He was probably so drunk, that's what saved him from breaking bones, because he was so flexible.
Yeah.
Where were you when you heard about the war ending? Do you remember where you were?
Oh. Yeah, when the war ended, we were in Austria near the Inn River.
In, like I-N-N?
I really don't know how it was spelled,
Now you also told me that you saw Hitler's
Yes,
bunker.
I was just going to get that. That's where, this is in Austria already.
Okay.
Yeah. And they came one day and wanted to, see who wanted, and took us up to Hitler's hideaway. We saw Goering's house. Yeah. Hitler's house was all in one piece, and so was Goering's house. And of course, you couldn't touch anything in there,
Did you go inside?
Oh yeah, we went inside, but I didn't have any. I don't remember if I had an old box camera, and I don't remember if didn't have any more film or whatever. But I never got any pictures. If I did, them are the ones I can't find. They had an elevator. They had a big hotel, as a matter of fact, down below, that the a famous outfit that was building it in there, in that hotel. They were some of the guys that jumped out of the gliders and stuff when they made the invasion to. And I can't remember what the name of the outfit was. But
so what was that like, going through Hitler's hideout in Goering's house?
It was really, something unusual. I mean, it was a beautiful place, way high up. We had to walk up, by the way. They had an elevator, I was going to tell you, that went up through the center of the mountain. Was the size of our bedroom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big.
But it wasn't in operation. We did see it.
Yeah.
They opened the door and showed us what it was like inside. But we never got to use it because it was broke. But that was, like I said, that was an interesting thing to see,
Right.
I wish I had remember what I did with all the pictures. I don't know how they disappeared out of here.
So you were in Austria at the end of the war. When
Yep.
did you go back home to the United States?
Oh, it took us, after the war ended, we went to some town over there, and they put us on a boxcar. There was boxcars that were pulled by an engine. That was our trip going back to, gee, I don't remember that either.
Did you go back? You must have gone back to France because
Yeah,
isn't that when you went to
that was
Paris?
what was the port of embarkation to go back over. I don't know if they went over to England again.
You don't know whether you sailed out of France or England to come home?
No.
What ship did you sail on?
A small one. That's all I can tell you. It wasn't anything large. I don't recall it at all. But we went to, like I said, toward the. And we had an opportunity. As a matter of fact, that picture I showed you here, the guy there, we had a chance to play golf. Yeah, they had a golf course over there, and so we went over there, you know, see what we could do about getting it. He was an avid golfer, one of the guys that was in our unit. So he said to me, "You want to play golf?" And I used to play here a little bit. As a matter of fact, I used to caddy at the Shadow Country Club when I was a kid, you know, and I got a chance to play in the caddy tournament one time they held for the guys, you know. But he went in there, and I guess he asked if there was any way that we could go play golf. Well, you never saw nothing like it. 2 bags of what do you call it, golf clubs came out, golf balls, and everything else ready to go. They said, "Go ahead, go out." So we did. We played golf together. And he said, when he gets home, he says, "I'm going to take up, I want to be a golf professional." But I don't know whether we ever made it or not. I have
Now
no
that
idea.
was in France that you played golf?
I'm pretty sure.
Wow, so you played all over the world. Do you remember any of your fellow officers or fellow soldiers?
Oh, well, they're all listed here too.
Did you have any friends?
I think our battalion commander was Bier, B-I-E-R something.
What was he like?
Oh, he was a major.
What did you think of the officers?
Well, they were all. The only officer that I really didn't care for was ours, the captain. And he was from the South, Alabama. Yeah.
Why didn't you care for him?
Because he didn't care for northern people.
Oh.
Anybody up north was dirt as far as he was concerned. I think he was still fighting a civil war, or they still think that they won it. I don't know which it was.
Do you remember any of your fellow soldiers?
Oh yeah, well the one I played golf with,
Remember his name?
his name was, his last name was Martin. And I remember another one, last name was Kuhar.
Did you stay in touch with any of them after the war?
No.
Did you attend any of the reunions after the war?
Oh, wait a minute, I did run into somebody here. I forgot about that incident. The guy was, I don't know if he was on another tank. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't remember his name either.
But you ran into him after the war in Connecticut?
He was in our outfit, but what happened is they were calling for volunteers at a critical time when they were running short of infantry. And they had 2 or 3 in our outfit that volunteered, and he was one of them. He was a sergeant. And my wife and I, we were up in Burlington, factories up, we used to be in Unionville.
Yeah.
One time going through there, and I ran into him in there.
And you recognized
Oh,
each
yeah.
other?
Yeah. It was I don't know. Couldn't have been too many years after the war, you know.
Yeah.
That I ran into him up there.
Wow. Now, you said you have not attended any of the reunions?
I'm sorry, what?
You have not attended any reunions?
No. No.
When you got back to the United States, where did you go?
Well, I guess we were in New Jersey.
Is that where you were discharged from?
No, they from out of, that's where we landed, I guess, and they, of course, they threw a big party for us when we got off, and we stayed a couple of days there, and then I came home for a 30-day leave. And the war in Japan ended when I was here. They were going to, as a matter of fact, we were slated to go to Japan after the leave.
So while you were on leave is when the war in Japan ended?
Yeah.
Boy, that must have felt good, huh?
Well, I thought sure that they were going to notify us that, you know, to stay longer, but when they said report back, so I had, after my month's leave, I had to report back to Texas. I forgot the camp.
That's all right. How long did you stay in Texas before they discharged you?
Well, we went through a process out there. You know, what they did is they went by points, the point system, how long you were in, you know, and Camp Bowie.
That's the name of the camp in
Bowie.
Moy?
Yeah. Boy or Bowie, either one, I don't know. But it was a nice place.
So you had regular barracks to sleep in?
Oh yeah, we had regular barracks, and we had just about all the freedom you'd want because we were just waiting. And they had a big lake there, and we used to go swimming there every day. So I spent a month out there. That's all I did is I used to go swimming every day.
And then you finally got discharged?
I finally got discharged.
And you came home to Connecticut then?
Yeah.
And is that where?
As a matter of fact, they dumped me off down at Berlin Station. Then that's all they had. We used to have one in New Britain, and I don't know what happened. That's why I went into the service. New Britain had a railroad station. And that's where I went into the services there. But
Now, was your wife in Connecticut when you got out of the service, or did she have to come back from Pennsylvania to join you here?
no. No, what they did is they shipped, like I said, when I come home after the leave, I went right to Texas, and I stayed there. And then when I got discharged, they gave me train tickets, of course, you know, everything else. And I ended up getting off down at the Berlin station, and I had to walk to the Britain. Well, that's not far, not really far. You know, then things weren't that far anyway. Yeah. And
What did you do in the days immediately after you were discharged?
look for a job.
And where did you find one?
I finally found one in Landers, Ferry and Clark. Yeah.
And what did you do for a career after the war?
Well, I went to tech school. I graduated from high school, and I also graduated from E.C. Goodwin Technical School.
Was that before the war or after the war?
No, before the war.
Oh, so you had already gone, what were you studying to be at tech school?
Electrician.
So did you go on to do
Yeah.
electrician work?
That's what the, yeah. Yeah.
Did you go back for any additional schooling after the war on the GI Bill?
No, I didn't get any more schooling. No, I couldn't spare the time, you know.
And so you were already married, and how many kids did you have?
All told,
Yeah.
4.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I understand that one of your sons fought in Vietnam. I'm going to interview him for the project.
Go upstairs. Yeah.
Did you join any veterans groups?
I joined the VFW.
Are you a member now?
Yeah, I'm still a member.
And which post is that? Berlin?
Yeah.
What kinds of activities do you do with the VFW?
I don't have the time to participate in it. I did one. I went to meetings when I first joined. As a matter of fact, I'm a charter member of the one in Berlin there. Yeah. But I just time just didn't allow it. You know.
How did your military experience affect your life?
How did what? I'm sorry.
How did your military experience affect your life?
Well, it took me a little time to get back to normal, let's say. Yeah. But it wasn't a life for me, I can tell you that also. They asked me if I wanted to re-enlist before they discharged me, and I told them no way. No.
Is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered in this interview?
No, not really.
Well then, Frank, I'd like to thank you for your
Oh, that's
interview.
okay.
And thank you for your service for our country.